What's up, Ali? Welcome, everybody. Well, welcome, Ali. Gunter, North, Angela. What's up, Scant Williams? Much love and appreciation to you as well, Scant. Good to see you. Waiting for more people to show up. The Realist. How's DC? What's up, brother? It was good. Good trip. Back. There was not a lot of room for streaming there, unfortunately. I gotta figure out a way to stream while I'm traveling, because the problem there is that I can technically stream from my phone, but then it's only gonna be on TikTok, and I feel like I don't want to neglect YouTube and X and Twitch, which has to be from my laptop, and it's kind of hard to do when you're on the go, because then I'm gonna have to use cellular data to do that, and it's just crazy, you know. But I'll find a solution. What's up, Nicola? Good to be back. Good to see everybody. Side Dragon, how are you? Irene Beth. Hola, hola. Okay. Starting to get some flow. Thank you for the likes. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. And yeah, I think I'm really starting to kind of see the flavor of the different lives that I'm gonna start putting out more. It's gonna be a little bit more structured. I was talking about this before. I will have some guests come on. I was just visiting Chase Hughes, is a body language expert. He does this segment with Dr. Phil. He used to teach interrogation for the CIA, and he's a body language expert, and he invited me to, talk about the stuff and show him. It's interesting because he basically reached out because he said that he saw something about the behavior of people that see the code that he knows is unfakeable. It's impossible to fake such a reaction. And that was the main reason that he reached out. It was very interesting. Thank you for the likes, guys. I recorded a short chat with him, which I'll be releasing soon. It was a fun one. It was a very short one, but it's a fine little conversation right before we went to see it. How are you, Miriam? Good to see you. Ohio, thank you for the likes. I appreciate you. Welcome, everybody, on TikTok. Welcome, everybody, also on X and Twitch and YouTube. That is kind of crazy. This thing with, I'm just noticing this with TikTok, that if I don't show up for 2-3 days, it drops the ranking of the chat so much, so substantially, that now we have, like, it basically advertises it to, like, now we have 10 people in the chat. It already got to the point where we had like 100 people in the chat and 150 people in the chat at all times, and now it drops by like 10 times just by not showing up for 3 days. That's kind of crazy. Wow, they're really keeping you in the system, huh? I'm not sure I like that. I am committed to show up, basically, like I said, daily, aside from the days it's literally impossible because I'm traveling all day. But that is kind of annoying, I'll be honest. This is like a weird system. Like, you build something for so long, you know? Anyway, this is just me lamenting. Very grateful to be back. Appreciate everybody who are here. Welcome, welcome. We're not trapped, Miriam. The proposition is that the world is computational, and we are a subset of that larger computational space. We're a projection, a hologram. It does not for 1 second invalidate our, what you would call, freedom of operation, even though free will is a much more contentious subject. It does not for 1 second mean that you're stuck or in prison or any of these things. Your experience is exactly what you make of it, just like you thought about before. It's just that what you would call the structure that holds everything together has a different flavor. It's computational versus physical, and we're now starting to discover that there's a layer that we can technically interact with in a real way, in an experimental way. But no, it does not mean that we're stuck. It does not mean we're in prison, and it just means that we are discovering a larger world that we now get to interact with. Welcome, everybody. You didn't miss much, Daniel. Good to see you. We are here. We just started. And John O says, saw you on Danny Jones' podcast today. It was really good. I appreciate you. Yeah. Wait, did he release the full interview? I think he only released the audio, right? Is that correct, John? I appreciate you. Is there anyone you can talk to about the math behind it, such as Help Puthoff? So I definitely have people that are, like physicists and scientists that are ready to go. The truth is that I'm building a whole program, and there are people that are interested to invest and help me understand, structure this in a real way. I just have to put all the dots together. So people, Hal Puthoff is pretty known, of course, and it can be interesting to work with these people. But yeah, there's quite a few people now that are of a high caliber that are interested, and we're gonna figure this out. I believe that within the next year we'll have something to show experimentally. Welcome everybody to the chat. I really appreciate all the likes. This channel usually revolves around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found actual proof that we live in a simulation. I've been vocal about the experiment that I've devised a few years ago that I'm claiming proves at least a layer of that larger reality, and it now got me contacted with some of the leading leaders and researchers in the field, as well as some people that are some movers and shakers that are interested to help move this project forward. I'm very encouraged by this, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm also noticing that a lot of powerful people are very interested in helping changing the world for the better. I know it does not align with a lot of the stuff that people believe, especially online, but I assure you that there's a lot of really good people high up. It doesn't mean that all of them are, but there's a lot of them, which is very encouraging, by the way. So, top 0%, what does that mean? I think they mean 100%. Okay, so if anybody who's joining on TikTok and are new to the channel, welcome. We usually talk about the experimentation that I've devised. I'll talk about it in one moment. That shows that we actually live in a computational environment, or simulation is a simple word to use here. But we also discuss science, and we discuss religion, spirituality, philosophy, God, whatever comes to mind. We really go deep. I usually show up every day. Sometimes I have to travel for a few days and it's difficult or impossible, and then we have gaps. But I am doing my best to be here every single day. If you're interested in a larger scope of what I'm doing, you can always find my YouTube channel, which is Dango Thoughts, DANGO Thoughts, which has the longer versions of all the videos that you see here on TikTok. And there's a lot of new content coming up. I know I keep saying this, but we're working on it, and there's going to be a lot of fun new things. You can also just follow the link tree in the description, and you can follow me across platforms. I'm speaking to all the platforms now that are here engaged with us today. It's either Danny Goller on TikTok and Instagram, Goller Danny on X, LaserX83 on Twitch, and Dango Thoughts on YouTube. Okay, that's enough housekeeping. Oh, one thing I do always have to mention, I did just add a members program on YouTube, and it will include private Zoom conversations with me. It will include daily lives, not daily lives, it will include private lives aside from the daily lives, and extra content that does not exist anywhere else. At the moment, there's not a lot there, but it will be very soon, and I'm going to be putting out a lot of stuff early, obviously, also on the members channel. So if you want to join that, it definitely helps the project and the mission. So I appreciate you all. Okay. Let's see what we got here. The Poke Fam. It's interesting because I'm not sure. I'm gonna name you if you are, but somebody asked me a few days ago about the 369, and I'm not sure if you're the same person, but if you are, welcome to the chat. What's up, Nico? How you doing, brother? I do think the 369 is one of these ratios that have to do with interactions with frequencies that are akin to the fine structure constant, which is 1 over 137. I'm not quite sure exactly how it fits, so I don't want to speak out of turn. Very soon, I'm going to be starting a period, which probably going to be over 3 months, of only experimentation, all new experiments that I've never tried before. It's going to be a lot of playing with holograms and different materials and magnets. It's going to look cool. It's going to be cool. Most of it will fail because that's the nature of the game, and we're going to document all of it and put all of it into film. It's going to be a lot of fun, fascinating, and hopefully you guys will be able to join. Let me take a couple of questions because today I will probably be able to probably stay for about 30 minutes. So let's try and take as much as possible. To your question, Priest, the experiment is very simple. If you project a diffracted laser on a surface and you ingest a molecule that I cannot name here on the live chat, you will see code running in the surface. And this observation has now been substantiated. I would say at this point, easily I can say 1,500 times worldwide, but probably a lot more. And everybody are saying the exact same thing. The realism, the specificity, the space permanence of the code is really what makes it stand out over anything else that people see in these altered states. Oh, the full episode on Patreon. Cool, John. Awesome. I'm glad that you guys saw it and you enjoyed it. Yeah, I've been on the Danny Jones podcast. It's going to be coming out soon for the broader audience. So thank you. I appreciate it. Dad and nice handle. Join the Halloween. Whoa, what? Yeah, we're not doing that here. I mean, simulation doesn't mean life is not real. Exactly. That is exactly right, said Morpheus. Yes, looking forward to talking to next week. All right, Daniel. Awesome. Nicola Parsons is saying, watch cells reproduce. It's code. I don't know if I would classify it as code. It's a process that happens. I would define code as what dictates behavior of different substrates. I'm not sure that replication of cells would fall into that category. They follow the instructions of a code inside of a DNA. I would say yes. Do you think it's similar to what was discovered during Project Stargate? I don't really know enough about it, to be honest, Michael. I got abducted. I know it sounds stupid as F, but after that happened, I realized that this life isn't what it seems. I 100% believe you only because I've seen it for myself. The truth starting to come out. So first of all, thank you for sharing, and I hope your experience wasn't too traumatic for you, Ancient Taco, which is a great handle. But yeah, I think that unless somebody sees it for themselves, you're right. There's not going to be a lot of possibility for them to truly take that into account and, entertain the real notion of what it is. One of the things that is becoming crystal clear for me is that the essence of what it is really the thing that can only be delivered by the experience of it. Because I think we have, this idea that there is no difference between a very advanced civilization and what we would call God. I think that's not exactly true. I think the word God and this whole vibe of the divine has a different kind of essence. It has a different kind of feeling than let's say that it's just a very advanced technological civilization that is running a computational environment. I'm personally convinced that it's actually the latter, not the former, even though I see that in this higher space there is this thing that we call the divine. There is this ultimate light shining through. But on our levels of emergence, it will manifest as something a little bit more technical. And I think that difference actually matters. Have you heard of reciprocianism? No, I don't know what that is, sorry. The ears of wisdom are closed except to those of understanding. I'm going to meet you one day. Absolutely, Ancient Taco. There's no real limitation aside from time, honestly. I'm not closed to meeting people, and in fact, I've done a very small uh, uh, meetup meeting, which only 2 people showed up to, which was very cozy and nice. But I'm going to be doing more of those, and they're going to expand, they're going to grow. So I'm definitely not closed to meeting people and interacting with communities. It's just a matter of time limitation. Thank you, the subtle realm. I appreciate you. The subtle realms. I appreciate you. John O was saying some of the symbols I was able to see in the trailer kind of reminded me of Enochian alphabet, which is cool because they call it the language of the angels. Interesting. Have you found a repeating pattern or a synchronicity yet? Does your view of the field code differ from others' views? Do you guys see the same symbols? I can't really answer the first 2 questions because I think they're a little bit too general. But for the last question, do you guys see the same symbols? Yes, they're all the same. Have you ever heard of Project Looking Glass? Sounds familiar, but I can't place it at the moment. Jason is saying, second time catching the live, love the spot. I appreciate you, Jason. I wonder if the subtle realm saying, I wonder if the drive to expand consciousness is in the fundamental coding as well. I think it spreads. We were just engaged at, well, we were also engaged last year, but me and my fiance, we were just sitting at the coffee table and breaking down where we think how the simulation actually maps on to the holographic principle and what we are, where it is. I'm going to be creating a graphic soon that will illustrate all of it. I think from a technical standpoint, it can be very interesting to draw. Have you tried projecting the laser into Black Mirror? Scry Mirror? Not sure. What do you think it's supposed to achieve? So my contention is that the code is everywhere. It's literally everything. There's not going to be any difference between projecting it on different kinds of objects. The difference in the code is not going to be seen, I think, on the type of object you're going to be projecting it, because I think it codes for a very general function that then gives rise to invisible higher structures that we see as the differences in the world. So I don't think, unless you're going to create very specific conditions, which is what I'm going to be trying to recreate, just by projecting it on different materials, I don't think you will ever see a difference in the code. Do you think the code you'll be seeing might be a form of cell towers? Turns off to disappear? No, definitely not. I think it's a very fundamental thing. Definitely not cell towers. I like my gods to have sense of humor. Yeah, same here. Nicola Parsons saying, like one that has a conspiracy YouTuber with knowledge of cell biology as standard. Wait, is this relating to something else that you asked before? Let me see. I understand. I don't really need to see any expert. I understand enough about cells to know that it doesn't match the criteria of codes. Where am I based for the meetups? At the moment, we're in Southern California. But there was only one. I'll be creating more of them, and maybe we'll do some around the country. A full moon for the, yeah. Yo! Chase, so good to see you, brother.
Hey, Danny, can you hear me?
Yeah, so good to see you, my man.
Brilliant. Yeah, you too, man. I heard you got some funding. That's great news. That's epic.
Yeah, well, we're working on it, but yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, any progress is better than
Yeah,
no
yeah.
progress, right? So, yeah, that's great. Congrats.
Thank you. I mean, it's gonna have to. I'm gonna have to align some things, and yeah, actually, you're probably a good person to talk to. Is one of the things I'm engaged in now is basically I have to create a very clear cut plan to show the telos of the project, people that potentially be involved, what are the criteria that we're trying to nail down in what period of time, all that good stuff. So you might actually be very helpful in helping me think about that and map it out. So if you're interested, that would be fun to have that conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to support in any way that I can. I don't know if I've mentioned to you before, but I work with Ray Hernandez and the Free Foundation. Well, it's not called Free anymore. It's called whatever. It's been rebranded, but the Dr. Victor Mitchell Foundation, and of course he founded IONS as well. I think you're maybe have some contacts there. I also am connected to the main guy at IONS, and I can't think of his name now, but I know he follows the Paradox Project pretty tightly. Dean Radin is who I'm thinking of. So yeah, there might be, and I've written my fair share of proposals, so I can support however you see fit.
And maybe even if you want to be involved in any way, we can explore and we can figure it out, and you can tell me what are the, because I know you're an engineer, and you worked on a lot of reverse engineer some of the sightings that we had, right, of UAPs and things like this, and building technologies, right?
Yeah, when before Lou left TTSA, we had some proposals in the works, and yeah, I actually went. was blown away because I was tracking UAP movement at the time in my research in Australia, and there was an individual there that was getting movement on high def video recordings the same time every week in these 7-minute windows. He would traverse this interstate there, and he would get these blips, and these things were moving. We calculated based off an estimated altitude range that these things were moving anywhere from 250,000 miles an hour to well over 1 million miles an hour, which is insane. Even 250,000 miles an hour is insane. And so I took that to him when I met with Lou and Tom in Encinitas. And he was like, yeah, we see it all the time. I'm like, really? 250,000 miles an hour? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that's fucking crazy.
Cruising altitude, cruising speed, right?
Yeah, this is zipping right along. You're talking, 60 frames per second. You see 2 blips across a span of sky that's, maybe 3 or 4 blips across a span of sky that's, miles and miles and miles. I don't remember the specifics of the numbers, but yeah, 250,000 miles an hour at minimum.
Do you think, I know you can't know, and by the way, before I move on, because I want to be very important, Nico is one of my core people. To your question, Nico, yes, there is no limitation on how much molecule you can ingest in any particular time. The worst that can happen is that you're going to have what's called a whiteout. You literally will not know anything happened. Literally, you will think nothing happened. That's the worst that can happen.
It's it's true.
Yeah.
That's the worst it's going to be, Nico.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right. Yeah.
That's interesting. So first of all, the technical question, do you think there is a way to discern from what we're observing what can be potentially actually technically be happening? Do you think there are protrusions from another dimension or something like this, or do you think that there's just too many variables to truly tell? And if so, what would be your wildest hypothesis as to what they really are?
So look, you've seen what Lou said in the news. It's more popular now than it was back in 2017 or 2019 when everybody really got wind of it. And I think that's when the New York Times post hit. Was in 19. It might have been in 17. Whatever. It's more popular now than it has been in mainstream. From an observable perspective, because I've worked with Lou, right? I was going to tour with Angels and Airways because Tom thought it'd be a cool idea to take the X100 on tour with the group. They wanted to go around and tour different schools and get kids interested in the instrumentation and the science behind UAP. They had a lot of other plans. We were going to go on HBO. We were going to do a bunch of stuff. The instrumentation stack, because like you said, I'm an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer, master's in electrical, master's in mechanical, and I work with AI and advanced driver assistance systems and automated driving systems mostly. And ADS, the automated driving systems that I work with aren't just ground based. I work with air based and some space based and quite a few sea based. So anyway. I specifically was using a hyperspectral imaging system looking at the ultraviolet band as well as the infrared and vis band. 15, it was 15 pixels across the target from a 15-mile distance, which is incredible resolution. And, interestingly, a lot of these UAP will show up with really unique characteristics in different parts of the spectrum. So what you observe in UV might be completely different to what you observe in visible. Obviously, if you get on Google and you look up ultraviolet images of pretty flowers, you're gonna see things in UV that you don't see in vis. But I mean, like, even the basic characteristics of the UAP will shift quite dramatically. Something might look like an organic amoeba or something in infrared, and in vis it might look like a cube, just as an example. This drastic shift. So there are ways to tell, like, first of all, if it is unknown or if it is an unknown. And then once you know it's an unknown, I think there are things that you can learn about some of these things, all of these things from current instrumentation stacks that we have. But more to just the phenomenon generally. I mean, these guys know that this stuff has been around forever. This isn't new. Maybe it's new to the general population that, we're not the only intelligent species occupying this planet, but it might just be new to this generation or the last 5 or 10 generations. This is not something that was a new concept ages ago. It's something that you see in the historical record over and over and over again. It's in every religion. It's in every science fiction show, in every book, right? So this thing's been ongoing forever. It's a core part of what we are. And your work with the molecule and the code, I think, is just another facet of this intricate reality that we're in. It's incredible that all of these things intersect. People talk about aliens, they talk about their experiences with substances, they talk about out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, alien abduction encounters and experiences.
So whatever it is, consciousness is central, you would say. Whatever consciousness is.
Absolutely. I mean, when I first started really heavily in researching this stuff, I was a hardcore materialist, absolutely through and through. I was a anti-theist. Like, I had researched various religions as thoroughly as I thought I needed to come to the conclusion that it was all BS. And I was convinced that there was no afterlife, all those things. A typical engineer that's working the day job, like, that's the guy that I was.
By the way, quick question. Nico is asking, did you work with the To the Stars Academy before?
Yeah, TTSA. That's TTSA.
Right.
Yeah. So I worked with Tom and Lou and Steve from Lockheed there. And they were going to hire me for an AI project. And then I talked to him about some of my own experiences, because I've had strange things happen to me even prior to having this really significant event that made me research this every day. But yeah, that's TTSA. Yeah, Lou. Yeah.
Yeah, he worked with Lou directly, Nico.
Yeah.
Well, so a question for you: the Arrow now, right? Is this basically the same under a different name, or they're slightly different? AARO, which is the new thing, right? And what I found, before you say something about it, what I found particularly interesting about the Latin words that are written, everybody can look it up right now, AARO, which is the new, incorporated organization the government put out to investigate these things. In Latin, it says something along the lines of, the universe is what we make of it. Something like, our thoughts create reality, something like this, which I found particularly interesting, considering your personal experiences as well. And just to summarize them quickly, you basically had, since you were a little kid, a lot of experiences of seeing UAPs, and you've interacted with some of them in a way that you almost can like invite them in kind of thing. And you spoke very. It was fascinating because you spoke about this thing which I've heard before, that these dots of light that we see, and also even the stars, there's somehow some kind of a facet of this matrix that we can actually interact with if we look at them from this other perspective. Like, it's almost like if you can move to a different level of consciousness, you can actually see more of what they are and you can interact with them easier. So I found it particularly interesting in the context of, I guess what you would call the awakening, and what people experiencing more from, I guess, the spiritual flow of things, of this like emergence of the understanding that we're all part of this larger self, and we literally manifest reality from what we emanate, not just in terms of what we think and then we act and then we make it, but like truly like in the exact way that the book The Secret means manifesting, basically. So I found it interesting that's what they chose as the Latin phrase. And I just want to put this in the context of what you were about to say, because I think you were making some of the connections of what consciousness and our experience of these things are, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was unaware of the slogan or tagline that they have. That doesn't surprise me. I'm curious now, like, who's responsible for developing that and approving it. I'd be interested I think that would be interesting to find out. But as far as Arrow is concerned, it's just another variation of one of these top level programs. They have, and Greer, as much as I dislike a lot of the more recent stuff Greer's put out, he's known for saying everything's siloed, and it's true. If you speak to anybody that works in counterintelligence in the government, or just intelligence in general in the government, I mean, they'll tell you flat out, like, it's need to know for absolutely everything. And there are no exceptions to that rule, unless somebody owes you a favor and your buddies or something like that. And even then, it's not a simple approval process. It has to go through a command chain, right? A formal approval process. So I think Arrow is just this top level, surface level kind of agency that's intended to give us a little more information than it has than the previous programs have given us in the past, and I think there's a lot of disinformation out there, and I think a lot of it is focused intentionally on keeping our eye on the shiny thing that's flying around in the sky versus actually thinking about what it means to have the experience itself. Like you said, everything is consciousness. It seems that way. Science is moving in that direction. We're starting to refocus on the hard problem of consciousness and think about it in different ways that we haven't before. And it's nice to step back pretty regularly and just be humble and realize that we're still in diapers. We still really don't know anything, even when it comes to just basic exploration of our own planet. We haven't explored, we've only explored a fraction of it, right? The oceans alone is like 5%, 10% maybe of the oceans have been explored. We're constantly finding new species. We're constantly learning more things about anatomy and physiology and biology in general and astrophysics and everything else.
By the way, what do you feel? First of all, another question by Nico. Do you know Bob Lazar? Have you ever met him?
No, I saw that question earlier and I just forgot to respond. No, I've wanted to meet Bob, but I never have. But I know a lot of the other guys. I've met Corbell before. I know Grant Cameron and I are really good buddies. He's not as well known as Lazar, and various other people. The Pascagoula guy that passed away recently, I was buddies with him, and the Bledsoe family, I know those guys, and there's quite a few. Yeah, you talk to people and you bother individuals that are in mainstream when you research this shit every day. So
to throw one at
doesn't
you.
make me special. Just means I just bugged the
Oh,
hell
come
out of
on.
everybody.
You are special. So question. I'm sure you at least familiar with. I never know how to pronounce it because my accent is terrible when it comes to these exact vowels. But Museum of Tarot,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
How do you
yeah.
pronounce it?
With tarot, yeah,
Tarot,
yeah.
Museum of Tarot. Okay,
I
so
think
kind of
that's. I
like
think tarot is another
tarot. Okay,
option.
so it's
Some of
basically
it's
kind of like
modern. Yeah,
pharaoh, just tarot.
maybe. I
Okay,
don't. I'm
yeah.
not. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so in any case, you're familiar with the guy, right?
yeah.
So if I understand correctly, he's technical training. He's trained. He's a neuroscientist. Is that his background?
Oh, I didn't realize that he had a medical background.
I think
Um,
neuroscientist is not technically medical. I think it's well. I mean, you have to go to med school originally, but anyways,
yeah,
from what I
yeah.
understand, he does have some technical training.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
My understanding is a technical background, but I'm not sure if it's in neuroscience or not.
got it.
Yeah,
Okay, so what's interesting is that he recently was. What I like about his content is that you can never know where he's going to land on a particular subject. It's very unpredictable, which is I like it
yeah,
because I don't know what he's going to think next. It's actually kind of boring to me when if somebody comes on screen, I already know what they're going to say about something, right? Because they're in a camp. So there's something about that that I appreciate. He came out after all of the last wave of the conversations that we all saw about UAPs. I mean, in the government, and he said that he showed that there are these blueprints that basically showed that the government had drawings of these vehicles exactly the way they're described in these reports now, including the square with with the sphere inside and underwater things and all of that stuff. What I mean, I can maybe guess, but what would be your response to that? Like, if you show, do you think th- maybe the government had them, but they basically took that idea from these UAPs? Because I think for you and for me as well, because I've seen them, like I know that whatever they are, they're absolutely real. And I mean, I have a hard time believing that it's something that falls within the purview of what we can do on Earth. But I mean, maybe. Anyways, I'm rambling. What do you think? Like, is it possible that this is government made in the end of the day, or?
I think it's really easy to tell the difference between the two if you know what to look for. So, this is an area that I have I've recently received some intel on from some other contacts of mine. Um, do you remember the jellyfish UAP video? Did you see that?
No, I don't think so. Is it the one in space? No.
No, this is a somewhere in the Middle East, I presume. It's a desert environment. It's at a military base. This is flying over this military installation rather slowly. People have speculated that it looks like balloons, but it does look like a jellyfish, and the way that it is perceptible in the visible range, it shifts a bit throughout this video. So if you watch the video, it's really compelling, and it does look alien in the kind of science fiction movie sense, right? Something
Okay.
that a producer or director would come up with for, the movies, the literal movies, right? I think that's our tech. I know for a fact, I can't prove it to anybody here, but I know for a fact that we have reverse engineered tech, but it's not good. Like, it's better than anything else that's in the public's eye, but it doesn't last very long. It requires a lot of power, and we don't have the technology to provide power for sustained use over more than, I don't know, maybe a couple of hours. This is the intel that I've got. I don't know if it's completely true, but I'm fairly certain that there is some truth there. And it's my understanding that different countries like China and Russia have reverse engineered different aspects of the tech, and they've produced varying but similar results. So, as an example, China might be able to completely extract a certain material with their reverse engineered UAP, and it might only take them 3 hours, whereas Russia might try and make it halfway to the target and just fall out of the fucking sky. Okay, so it's that kind of thing. But as far as what we see, as far as the USOs or the UAPs, like when you see the really incredible maneuvers or some of these experiences. I'm sure there's at least one person, you might be one of them, Danny, that's had an experience with a close encounter with a craft, and the stuff that isn't us, you just know it's not us, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's what I keep
Yeah,
saying. By the way, also that actually annoys everybody in the spiritual community. But I keep saying that at least what you see in the molecule space, there's no way that's us. So,
right,
I mean,
right.
there's just no way. People are like, it's your higher self. Like, I don't think so. This is
Right.
so different. But I mean, it's just funny. It's actually funny because on a small tangent, I just visited Chase, another great Chase. Chase Hughes is a behavioral and body language expert. He does this now. He
Oh
does
yeah.
this segment with Dr. Phil, and he has his own very successful YouTube channel. He does a lot of training. By the way, I recommend his content. Great guy and great content. Fascinating stuff because he truly is like a world expert. Like he used to teach interrogation and for the CIA, and he really understands like behavior, body language, all that stuff. I said this in the beginning of the live. He reached out because he said that he's never in his life. He said my job is to smell bullshit from 10,000 miles away. That's what I do. Uh, you can't fake what I see in this video. It's impossible. He said I watched it 10 times to watch different signs. Like you just can't fake this kind of reaction. That's literally the telltale sign of no mask. People are just in true awe. That's very rare. And I just visited him, and he was talking about this thing of the difference between the feeling of the spiritual and whatever it is. Because I always claim that at least in the NN space, I feel like people kind of importing their biases into the space because they talk about angels, they talk about, and whenever they say that, I'm like, I don't really know what you're talking about because in the NN it just feels like full on technology. Like it just feels like an alien civilization, and it's not just to me, like it's just across the board.
Mhm.
And when he tried it for the first time, he never he never done it before, and then he was like, he's like, this is not spiritual. I'm like, I know. And then he looked at the thing and he was like, this is crazy. This is not like you don't expect this because you kind of think you're gonna have this like oh that kind of thing, and it's just not that. So I really wonder if the channels are adjacent or above one another. Well, I think we had this conversation before. Right? It just I always wonder about this. Like, what is the hierarchy, right? Is there this like God up here, angels and all of that stuff, and then simulation, or does it go the other way around? Is God and all the angels content inside of the simulation? And I mean, at this
Yeah.
point, I don't think we have a way to discern, but it is an interesting question to think about.
It's really curious that I've recently been focused on, well, it's kind of a combination of particular quote unquote abduction experiences. There's one or two individuals particularly that I'm focused on now because the information that they brought back is really aligned with stuff like Newton's work on life between lives and Monroe, not Monroe, well, Monroe too, but the other guy. I always get him and Monroe mixed up.
Talking
He was the
about
guy that wrote like
the My Big Toe, Campbell.
Campbell too. Yeah. So all of
He
that
studied
stuff,
under Monroe, right? He studied under Monroe, I think.
Yeah, Campbell was the first, was
Was
one of the first two engineers to develop um, the 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 audio sequence as well as the Monroe Institute. Yeah,
I see. Okay.
yeah. But so what was it that you were? I forgot what the core of that bit was.
Oh, that you were talking about. So I said that he said that it didn't feel spiritual, and then you started saying
Mm,
something about that. Yeah, it doesn't ring a
yeah,
bell.
yeah. I think it's really interesting. So you've got all of this activity that you can experience with the molecule, right? I mean, I know I haven't experienced all there is to experience. I don't even know if that's possible with the molecule in one lifetime. But there are these similar types of experiences that we share, right? We see a lot of the same entities. We go to a lot of the same environments, and like you said, that there are a lot of trips that do come off as highly technical, highly technological, alien. And I know 60, 70% of the trips that I've had, and I don't think I've had as many as you, but I've had about, I'd say maybe 100, 150 trips. Um, maybe 70% of those, I always have this thought and this feeling that they, whoever they are trying to maintain the connection. And I've even had one trip where they helped me consume more of the molecule, which freaked me out. Now I'd be okay with it, but in the moment I just was blown away that could even happen.
Yeah, it's so different.
But,
Yeah.
But more about that experience. Like, I've had trips that showed me intelligence that I hadn't experienced yet. Right? I've seen people in trips prior to actually meeting them. There have been entities that have been noticed after the fact in the house. Really interesting things. And then, so those kinds of experiences, in conjunction with the experiences that we have throughout all of the human population and all of history, but particularly what I'm focused on now are, I've forgotten the original doctor's work, at least in the last 40 or 50 years. Dr. Powell, I think, was studying telepathy in nonverbal autistic kids. Now there's a documentary being made by I've forgotten her last name, but the documentary is called The Telepathy Tapes. She's got a podcast now. You can go check it out. And I urge everybody here listening to go do that. Not to take anything away from Danny. Danny's work is equally as important, but all of this is intimately connected and intertwined. So the reason I bring it up is because telepathy in these studies and Dr. Powell's work is absolutely proven, right? The same thing's true with the various other kinds of ESP. The same thing's true with reincarnation and the work of Ian Stevenson and everybody else that's worked on reincarnation research in the past. The same thing's true for near-death experiences and the work of Dr. Long and so forth and so on. It's all been proven. The problem is, usually funding dries up or is not available to things that don't agree with mainstream science, right? And so if you are, and Danny, I think, can probably, attest to this aspect of working in academia and the scientific community as well. Even now, it's better than it used to be, but it's still challenging. If you challenge materialism, typically it's difficult. It's more difficult to get funding anyway.
No, for sure. I think it's keeping the interest. So like I feel like this is the thing that I'm trying to also work on because I generated enough interest at this point. Enough serious people looked in that direction and said, okay, all right, well, we're interested.
Right.
What's your plan though? So now you kind of have to look. And then one of the things I'm thinking about is how do you create a research program that doesn't dissipate the interest in which doesn't dissipate? Like how do you keep because there will be a period in which we kind of have to investigate a lot of different things, and as you know, as an engineer, most things don't work. It's very difficult to make something work. So how do you keep that narrative alive in a way that is congruent and authentic and real to the facts, without confabulating or creating hyperbolic narratives about it, but at the same time taking into account that it might take some time to like truly, give it a real stab.
Yeah. I mean, it's really quite. I don't know. I'm just thinking about approaching this from a more formal perspective. Because going into this, like you said, you mentioned that I had this experience. I've had experiences all throughout my life as a child. Close encounters with craft and stuff. Nothing that I could ever recall. No alien abduction experiences or anything like that, but really close encounters with craft. Chasing us down highways, hovering in front of my childhood home, massive craft, absolutely alien, not human kind of thing, right? And things that I refer to as ghosts, which I wouldn't really call them ghosts now, and stuff like that. But 6, 7 years ago, I have this experience that challenges my understanding of of consciousness, because it's a telepathic experience. I'm thinking something in my head and lights show up in the sky, and I do it 7 times back to back, and I have a witness. So, and it's interesting. It's really quite ironic that I initially went into this thinking that I might be able to prove that aliens have visited the planet. And now I'm absolutely convinced that there's an afterlife, that we just consistently repeat incarnations. We just not repeat the same incarnation, but we just consistently have experiences like these over and over and over again. I think maybe it might be beneficial for your work, Danny, to get connected to like a really well-known, well-respected OBE or somebody that can astral project, that does like evidential projection, which is a thing. So, I mean, somebody like that might be able to give you further insight into, and me too, I'd be interested to connect and have this discussion with somebody that does that, because it's not me. I'm trying to get there, but
Excuse me, I came here a little late, and I think I might know what you're talking about. But if I'm off subject, please excuse me.
Sure.
Are you talking about the parapsychology and psychological experiences, or what people would call otherworldly experiences? Is that what you're speaking of? Or I came in a little late on the topic.
That's okay. This channel, usually we're talking about the simulation hypothesis, and that's because I'm claiming that I found actual proof that we live in a computational world. That's what we're talking about.
Well, let me tell you, if you wouldn't mind. I'm sorry, Morpheus. I came late, and if you wouldn't mind.
No worries, this is casual. I don't care. This is Danny's house, so
we're all yeah. I like this is a community house, so go ahead.
Let me start out that I was always scientific minded and very concrete thinker, and I ended up going in the medical field, and I accidentally learned that there was a such thing as energy around people's bodies, because I ended up kind of being tricked into actually feeling it by a person who taught healing touch. And I thought I was just doing katas like karate people do, and I ended up feeling energy around people's bodies, and it kind of freaked me out because it scared me. I mean, this was back in the 90s, and I had no clue that it even existed, and it freaked me out when I first felt it. And then I had to find out that Eastern people had been doing this forever. And that kind of changed my worldview a little bit. And then I had to go down into Indian Eastern philosophies. But nothing that, other than being medically trained, formally trained, and nothing that struck me as remarkable other than that I can feel energy around people's bodies, which I don't know why everybody can't. I don't quite understand that, because I could feel it like you feel a table. I mean, it's just like, it just is for me. But the other thing that is, I'd been vax injured in the Navy. I was a nurse corps officer.
Mm-hmm.
I was medically retired, and they had to give me very, very high doses of ketamine infusions to try to disassociate my body from my mind, to try to kind of like reboot my brain, trying to get me out of this horrible pain I was in. And what I learned was remarkable when I went through these experiences was as I was going through these infusions, they would give me more and more. They were making it higher and higher doses, so they were titrating me, is the fancy word for that. And I would find myself at times where I knew my body was laying down on that table, because I was in a hospital setting. So I knew my body was down on that table, but I knew I was not there. And which really kind of fascinated me, because I had been through surgery before where I had absolutely no idea where I was. It was just like a whole different thing. Like I was under anesthesia and gone. But this was like, I knew that I was still Dawn and my body was down there. And I'm up here exploring in this environment where I'm going, wow, like, where am I? And how long have I been up here? And because time is gone, like you have no clue like you just don't know. And I'm looking around, but I have all my senses about me. I'm looking left and I'm looking right, and I'm trying to like, what am I seeing and where am I at, and what is this that I'm going? I don't know that I'm under ketamine at this point. I just know that I'm conscious. I'm somewhere, and I'm logically trying to figure out where I'm at. How long have I been here, and what do I do from here? And so, and that was just one of the most remarkable. That's just a common experience for me.
You
So
mean
what I've
without?
learned is
You mean
that
without any molecules? Just now, like naturally, you mean?
I'm talking about under ketamine.
Okay.
I'm very aware that I'm still Dawn, that my body, at some point, I know that my body's down there and I'm up here until they get me completely disassociated. But when I'm completely disassociated, I still know that I'm me. I might not know my name, but I know I'm in an environment and my logical brain is still going, wow, this is interesting. Where am I at? And
If I
I wonder
could-
how long I've been here and what do I do now?
If I could comment what you said, Dawn, first of all, what you said about being a medical worker, a lot of people, most people that work, especially with people that are on their deathbeds, people that work in hospice care, stuff like that, they know that there's more to this reality. There's more to experience after this life. They know it. They see it every day in the way that these people behave and interact with things that other people don't perceive. The other thing that you said about feeling energy is something that I've experienced, and I know it's something that people. I mentioned the telepathy tapes earlier. I don't know if you were on this call with us or not, but that's a podcast worth checking out that mostly talks about, or not only talks about, nonverbal autistic children and telepathy within them, and they're connected to their mothers. Oftentimes, they're connected to just about anybody in the room. They can read their minds. They all connect with other nonverbal autistic kids in a non-dimensional space that they call the hill. They can be thousands of miles apart. They can develop relationships, find boyfriends, girlfriends, talk about space-time and the environment and the things that they care about, and how nobody can hear them and everybody thinks that they're stupid. Like, this is a real phenomenon that community is very well aware of, and they actually have these nonverbal autistic kids in some cases in communities that are channeling information from the other side because they're connected to this field that some of us have experienced, and part of that field is or I think a pathway maybe to that field is that experience that you had with Kay, right? The experience that Danny's work with lasers is facilitated by an alternate molecule, and I'm sure somebody can type in the chat what that is. I don't think I'm allowed to say it, but
it's what people call the spirit molecule. But yeah.
Right. It's and I've had experience with that molecule, and Danny, you were talking about the technological aspect of it, and that does conflict a little bit with me. I mean, I've experienced it, but at the same time, for what it's worth, not much, but for what it's worth, my thought about what that molecule is it's like a shotgun blast out of the body, and depending on the very precise, very high precision level amount of intake based on your body weight and your metabolism and all of that, maybe that determines where you go. I don't know, but I know every time I've integrated it into my research, that's right, and went on a trip myself, I might end up in an alternate body. I've been a woman, I've been an elderly man, I've been a little boy on a school bus before, just as real as the experience I'm having now as Chase. With that molecule, I've gone out of body, I've floated above my body, I've met entities in space, I've had the life review experience that near-death experiencers talk about having. So I think a lot of these substances can facilitate having these experiences. I don't know what the technological aspect is of it, Danny. I know that Gallimore theorizes that this is a way to evolve and leave this experience because maybe it is a simulation. I think it's a simulation in a sense, but not in the sense of like we need to escape it. I think it's something that
Yeah, no,
we
no, absolutely. I,
can
I
create.
agree that we
Right.
don't need to escape. There's nothing to escape. It's just that the world is computational. It's not
Yes.
that there's
Right.
anywhere to escape to. There's no base reality. It's all computational, and that's basically it's just
Yep.
the nature of it is computational. I keep like if I have to okay, if I have to
And
sit
yeah, seven. Sorry,
the
seven
what
said
the what sorry.
you're right. This can be accessed through meditation, through holotropic breathing, through divination, through anything really. I mean, you hear reports of people being abducted by aliens while they're driving down the highway and they lose 2 hours of time.
Right.
I think what happens is their left brain is in overdrive, right? Everybody simplifies the brain dynamic, but to be cliche and use that same simplification, they shut down the analytical part of their side because they're focused and they're being imaginative. They're thinking of things. They're thinking about their future. They're thinking about their relationships, whatever it is they're thinking about. And that imaginative process draws them closer to having one of these experiences, and they leave the body and they have an experience. I think that's what's happening. Yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling.
No, 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 you're not. I guess what I want to say is that if I have to, the best I can do is just to report my experience as closely as possible. So if I have to, if I'm sitting by myself and I just have to really think about it, I don't think I've ever had that experience. It's more close to what how do you pronounce your name? Your name Cameo?
Dawn.
Cameo.
Cameo.
She
Okay.
said her
It's
name is
Dawn,
Dawn.
but
Yeah.
Oh,
my
Dawn.
nickname
Okay,
is
sorry. You got
Cameo.
it. Got it.
My
Okay.
name is Dawn.
Okay,
Yeah.
pleasure meeting you, Don. So it's closer to what you described in the beginning, which is that you're still aware of your analytical mind, right? You're just like the central unit. And I really
Right.
wonder if I'm starting to wonder if we're not at some kind of a crossroad or a connect, almost like a some kind of a multiversal ultimate train station right now. We're all the timelines are merging together, so we see each other, but
Mm.
we might be
Mm.
from different realities. Like you, some
Mm.
people, because a lot of the stuff that people report, I don't know what they're talking about. Like I understand what they're saying, but I have no idea what they're talking about. And by the way, the inner wiggle, the one that has to do with feeling other people's emotions much stronger now, that I can really feel it in my body. I can understand certain things without really talking to somebody, right? Now you can overlay a lot of explanatory frameworks on it. You can say, well, like you can technically explain this in terms of just like even a physical occurrence, right? You can say, well, there's a lot of information there that you're not aware of consciously, but micro expressions in the face, there's a lot of body language happening. The brain might be very good at interpreting it and then sending it through all the hierarchy of commands and then saying, this means that. And it invokes an emotion. And your experience is, oh, I'm feeling their emotion. When in reality, it goes through all of these different steps for you to feel like you're feeling what they're feeling, the mirror neurons and all of that. I'm not saying it right now in terms of trying to decipher which one is it actually is. I'm just saying that experientially, like the vibe of what, for example, what you're describing, Chase, the closer thing to, I guess, the divine versus the technological, and like you said, it feels to you like it creates a little bit of a dissonance between what you really your immediate impression of what reality really is. And again, you're very technical, so nobody can say, you're not educated or you don't have enough information. You have all the information. It's just that you come out from the other end of this and you're saying, no, it feels more like the divine thing. And I'm saying, I don't know, it feels a lot more like the technical thing. So I wonder
Well,
if we're
it's
not like in
both.
these like different timelines that are interacting with one another, that ultimately, of course, they all tie together at some point. But maybe
Well,
we're
hang on.
just, you know what I
Well,
mean?
hang on. I mean, how many breakthrough trips have you had? Estimate. It's in the hundreds, right? 300
Breakthroughs
breakthroughs.
on the molecule?
Yes.
Oh no, no, in the thousands for sure.
In the, in the thousands. I'm such a lightweight.
Oh no,
How
for
is it?
sure. No, no, no. I'm an outlier. Like there's another person here, Kirsten, who's probably she's probably falls in the same category. There's not a lot of people like that. It's like there was a period that I've done over a year. I was just on it all day. Like I
I,
can I
you
don't even
know,
count times. Like I was just on it all day for about a year and a half, maybe a year and three
okay,
months.
so
Yeah.
we need to have a conversation at some point about getting over the hump because I mean I've integrated this in my research now for 4 or 5 years, and maybe 150 times, probably closer to 100,
You're not a lightweight.
maybe
You're not a lightweight.
maybe.
It's just that some people
Well,
just
I
I
know.
took it to a different place. Like I just decided that I want to figure it out. And yeah, it's somebody said 1,000 with an
Well,
exclamation mark. I mean, no, we're talking like easily in the 4 or 5,000. Like that,
see
yeah,
that really is insane, but not in a bad way. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's unreal that you've been able to consume or to have that many experiences. I knew of a guy in Florida that took it every day for 3 or 4 months, and and he was absolutely convinced that basically of the same thing that Gallimore is convinced of. He was talking about how they were building him a body that he was going to shift into, all kinds of stuff. I personally think there's an aspect of this that draws attention to what our imagination is. Okay, because at the core of all of this is the experience that all of us individually are having. Right? That's the secret. That's the thing that really, I think, can provide the most answers about all of the experiences that we have. And so I think part of DMT, surely you had experiences with the jesters, jokers, whatever you want to call them, right? And they, more often than not, they're doing miraculous things, and they want you to pay attention to something, but they also want you to pay attention to something that's not the main thing that they're trying to draw attention to. It's an odd kind of characteristic of their behavior, right? It's like, I'm holding a jar and I want you to look at the jar, but I really want you to focus at the green door behind me. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
you
that
defocus your
characteristic,
attention. You're looking at an object here, but you defocus your attention in a way that you're looking at this while simultaneously focusing beyond it.
right, and that specific action that they try to draw attention to, that they try to get you to repeat and recreate, I think the purpose behind that is to point out what the process of imagination does. Now, I could be wrong, and I want to stay humble here and have quite a bit of humility, because all of this stuff is so wild and so crazy and so far removed from what we're taught in school is normal everyday stuff. Anybody that just is happening across this live and they're unfamiliar with this stuff, they're immediately going to think that everybody is just batshit crazy, which is fair. Like they should, but they, I'm losing my train of thought. Anyway, I think that's an aspect of it, but the technological component, I don't know. It seems 50-50 to me. But then again, if you've done it thousands of times, your perspective should be better than mine. You should have more data
Not
points.
necessarily. It could be completely different.
That's true.
I think
that's true as well. Yeah.
Well,
I think where I'm coming to head toward, I'm 63 now, and I was 30s when I started a lot of these experiences. And I think where I'm coming to understand for myself is that consciousness is misunderstood, what we call the state of consciousness. I think that consciousness is more of a fundamental field of information.
mm-hmm.
And the brain is more like a receiving and a transmitting and receiving device. And so I think that our beliefs, our perspectives, and our point of focus can place us on that field of information, and we can access information based on on what we're kind of where we're at, basically. So I may have one experience completely different than you, even under the same chemical or the same with the same intelligence level or with the same religious background. I think what I've learned from my experiences is that I also have a religious background, and I've kind of tried to blend and kind of counter understand these things. And I think that my feeling is that everything is comes from one. That's why, you know, you get spooky things at a distance where these molecules can, you know, you tweak one and the other one responds instantaneously without, you know, without any time or this, you know, they can have enormous distances between them in physics, but yet they respond as if you hit one, the other one instantaneously responds. And I think that's because what we don't understand is everything is essentially from one thing or one kind of thing. And it kind of fractals out into multiple individualities. And because there's that interconnectedness, because everything is connected, consciousness itself is a field of information, and all things can be tapped into from that field of information. All things, all forms of creation, all forms of experiences, all different. And I don't think time is what we truly think it is. I don't think time exists like we think it does. I think time is just it's a tool we use basically because our brains need it to make sense of our reality, to make sense of our experiences. I think when you go from a higher perspective, if you were to kind of say, we'll call it a God's point of view, if you were to look down in God's point of view, pick whatever word you want, call it God, call it a creator, whatever you want. Everything is happening in the moment of now. And the only reason we think it's different is because we are tapping into a perspective or a point of focus. And so we are experiencing things along that timeline. It's what we call a timeline or a dimension. And I think what we're learning now, while we call what you are calling, what you're calling technology, for me, is just that we're getting closer and closer to understanding what that means to be a creator, or to be able to create experiences simultaneously. Like, think of it like a game, or a guy could create an app with players. If I would take my player and I wanted to give him every experiences I could possibly give him so that he could do anything in my game that I wanted him to do, I would have to give him access to all information potentially at the same time. But based upon whether he went left or right or up or down or back or forth or waited or stopped, he would have an experience based upon that. So hence he has free will, but I have to provide him with all potential experiences to him now. So I think we are getting closer, what we call technology, what we call dimensions, what we call virtual realities. We are just getting closer to understanding the state of reality.
So my question to you is: have you done the spirit molecule before?
No, I didn't. I've read about things. I've heard about, ayahuasca, and I've read about these experiences, and I have heard of, and that's where I got into understanding what you were saying about a being that would kind of like look over here, but you're not really looking over here. You're looking over there. I kind of caught on to what you were saying.
What do you mean by that? Can you remind me?
Because I read about that.
What are you specifically referring to right now?
When you were speaking of
the gestures?
Yeah.
So the reason that I'm asking you is because the spirit molecule stands out as very different than any other kind of experience that people can have, exactly because it does not have this flavor or subjectiveness. It has this very strong sense of, no, this is just, it's not yours or mine. No, this is just real. This is just what you would call objective space.
I believe you.
Yeah, and I think, and this is, again, I go back to what people usually report when they, one of the things that the guy that I was just talking about, like, that I was visiting, and he did it for the first time, and he was saying, this is nothing like I've expected, because he has all the ideas that you just laid out. And he said, I need to reframe, because this is very different than what I've expected. Now, he's also a scientist, so he said, okay, this is I need to refrain. This is not what I thought it was. But also, I now don't think I actually think that I understand what reality is. Because I thought I did. And a lot of what you're saying, the first thing to say about that is that, of course, I know what you're talking about, right? So I've heard this before. I've experienced some experiences of, I'm seeing a lot of people what you would call waking up, experiences other people's energies, all of this stuff. And like you're saying, you think what we call technology is this process of waking up. I'm saying it might be that it's the other way around. That what we experience as these ideas that you just said and the experiences of the divine and all of that stuff, behind the scenes, they're actually a technology. Like they're not, it's not the way we're experiencing it. It actually is what it really is. And we experiencing it in this way so we can make sense of it. Because it's a lot less jarring. So if you imagine, you've seen the movie The Matrix, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure that you probably try and imagine maybe at some point what it would actually be like being Neo, waking up in that space and going, wait, what? Like
Yes.
imagine that moment, right?
Yes.
So it's not exactly a divine revelation that he's having in this moment. He's having
Right.
a panic attack, right?
Right. Yes.
So I think that's maybe why
But I've
it's
done like
coded.
Neo.
You've
I've
done.
done it. I've been through it. Yeah. When I first was new to ketamine and I didn't understand it, as they were making my ketamine more and more, I was kind of talking to the nurses because I was an RN and I wanted to know what it was like. And at first, my hearing would become mechanical, like tick 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 tick,
There you go.
and then their voices would become mechanical, like tick 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 tick,
Yep.
And then the room would start to fade out, and it would be like a scream, bup 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 bup. And then sometimes they would actually freeze frame on me. I would see the anesthesiologist literally freeze framed. I would look over at her and she's not moving. She's literally just sitting in that chair and the frame is frozen. So I have been through that and I have gone through these, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like being through this. It's like moving through a tunnel and a frame of, I can't even explain it. It's hard to explain that. Like I know I'm moving, but it's if you can imagine being a form of energy going through a wire. Like I know I'm moving, but it's more like it's like I'm in my brain now and not in my body.
Yeah. You basically are the signals that are moving everything in the body.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I know that feeling. I've actually told them it's like, hey, I'm going into the Matrix now. Tick 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 tick.
Yeah,
tick,
you're
tick.
describing
I know
you're describing
that. I've
it. You're
experienced
describing it so perfectly. I have to say.
But there's a point that I come out of that. There's
Mm-hmm.
a point where I move past it, where I'm actually not in that electrical state anymore. I get past that. It's like I go through, because I can feel myself. I joke about it. I can literally, and the coolest thing I've actually learned to do, and they get mad at me when I do it, but I've done it so many years now, is when I'm actually way under ketamine and I don't like where I'm going, because sometimes you can have a really nightmarish, hellish experience under ketamine.
Really?
Like if you go down that wrong surfboard, if you're on that wrong wave, you can go to this hell. I mean,
But can I ask you something? Usually on K,
I
you don't really you're pretty disassociated from how you feel. Do you still feel that it's that, even though you're on in a completely disassociated state?
It's just horror. You can literally go through this horror state where you have no control over your experience. So what I've learned to do is this sounds so weird, but I take my right pointing finger and my left pointing finger and I put them together in front of me and I touch them together and I focus on my fingers and boom, I can pull my consciousness right back into the room where I'm actually sitting in the room back where I'm at. You get what I'm saying? Even under all those doses. Like I was out there somewhere in outer space, and now just because I made up my mind that I was coming back, and I learned how to do it, I can pull my consciousness right back into the room.
Interesting.
A couple of
Isn't
things
that
I'd like to add.
amazing? That's
Please.
yeah.
I think this could add value for both of you. So, Dawn, specifically, I mentioned the telepathy tapes prior. I'm going to mention them again. There is one individual, a little boy, that has a therapist that he works with, his nonverbal autistic kid, that is communicating with the therapist telepathically. Okay. And he convinces her that it's telepathic real quick. They have the ability to even appear in front of people in the way that ghost encounters are described. They can project themselves in front of people.
Okay.
They can meet them in their dreams. There's one boy that meets his mom. He only talks to his mom in their dreams together. He wakes her up from the dream state into a lucid dream state so they can have full out conversations and experiences together. And then he's confirmed it after the fact in the waking state. Okay, you can research all this yourself. Just take my word for it. The reason I bring it up is because the little boy that has the therapist tells her that the reason that they're together, that they've been brought together, is so that she can help him attune himself to his body, that his light body is out of the frequency with his physical body, and they end up using tuning forks to bring his light body more into his body. You see these nonverbal kids, and they have these tics where they'll constantly shake their hands. The reason they're shaking their hands is because they don't know where the hell their hands are. So they're disconnected from their body. And physiologists and medical professionals for a long time have thought these children are stupid or intellectually handicapped, which is not the case. It's just the motor cortex that's at fault. So they might not have control of their bodies. They might even do fecal smearing and things like this. But intellectually, they are connected to the field, and they can speak more poignantly, more poetically than just about anybody else. Okay? So just research this stuff. But the reason I bring it up is because I think that what you're describing is that attunement to the body. Because I have memories, and I wanted to ask Danny this, with all of your DMT experience, molecule experience, with all of your molecule experience, you hear the noise, the sound, right? And not all the time, but sometimes you hear that noise and you feel it when you separate from the body. I've had experiences both with QHHT, which is quantum healing hypnosis technique, as well as DMT, in which I've recalled memories of being out of the body, of looking at entire planets filled with lifetimes and experiences like this one, viewing all of these things, being able to jump down into these experiences, but not fully appreciate or experience them because it's from a third person instead of a first person perspective. I think this experience that I'm having, that we're having now, is one of these instances that we've had, one of potentially an infinite number of experiences in which we decided I'm going to jump down and really experience what it is like to be Chase or Danny or Dawn or whomever, right? So I'm curious, Danny. I've also had experiences where I've had conversations, telepathic conversations with entities that have told me the purpose of this, which is they're studying consciousness and they create the environments, they create the bodies. We jump into the bodies because we're part of the field. They don't create the consciousness. They just facilitate the experience. These experiences that people have with what are called grays and alien abductions, those are the facilitators of the physical experience. They work between what we could call the physical and the non-physical dimensions. They can traverse both. So they don't have bodies, but they make these bodies so that they can operate in this dimension of perception. So I believe all of that wholeheartedly because I've experienced it. Now, that doesn't mean that my experience is absolutely correct. It could be, I could just be interpreting these things incorrectly. That's possible. Again, I want to have humility, but I'm curious if any of your experiences, Danny, support that theory, or if it sounds
What specifically?
familiar,
What
at least.
specifically? You said quite a bit. What the?
I guess specifically, it was really back to your discussion about the technological aspect of the molecules experience.
Oh, you're talking specifically about what everything
So,
with the grays and like how they move through
well,
like the
well,
consciousness.
maybe
The thing
the
that definitely
technological
aligns.
aspect is the technology that facilitates
The thing that definitely
this
aligns
experience.
is the consciousness is fundamental. That definitely aligns. That tracks, right? And that what I think I spoke about this before, that it seems that there is no even the, so to speak, I'm just going to use caricature terms, but even God doesn't know why everything exists. So basically, that's the conundrum, and that is why everything is happening, because God's trying to figure it out. And essentially, it's God asking the questions. The multiverse is the answer collecting itself. And essentially, this is what we were kind of trying to draw today, which is interesting. You probably know a little bit more about this, but for people that don't know, the way you create a hologram, well, there's a few ways, but one of the main ways is that you project a laser, you split it, so the beam splits into, one beam goes towards the heating an object, and from the object it hits a screen, just like a film of some sort, just like in a regular picture, just made out of a different material. And then the other part of the beam that splits, so this goes towards the object through a mirror, and then the other one that splits goes through a set of mirrors and then comes back and meets the first part of the splitting light, and it hits the surface, but also when it hits the surface, it's after it already interacted with the other part of the light that it is itself, like split, right? And it registers not just the amplitude but also the phase, which gives you this multi-dimensional image on the other side. What's interesting is that if you think of like, if the holographic principle is correct, which is one of the mainstream accepted ideas now in physics, we are the projection. Everything in the universe is a projection, and this is a mainstream physics idea. This is not some kind of a even a spiritual idea. And then if you think about it, so if the source, God, whatever you want to call it, is the original laser, right? Then you have some kind of a split. This is what we were kind of thinking about today, and we were discussing this back and forth, and I really like this kind of imagery. The splitting is basically the movement to duality. What does the splitting? I'm not sure from a technical standpoint, but it's essentially the moving to duality, right, from one. And then this light that continues towards the object, we're not sure exactly what the objects are. It might be that there's some kind of actually objective tapestry, like the physical world is real, which, in the spiritual realm, everybody are convinced that we're moving away from this idea, but it might actually be still true. But then whatever it is, if it is there, it's completely inert. Like it has like, but then when the light of conscious, when you do the splitting creates almost like I call it inness. It's like this quality of this versus that. So it's like, you can call it, very rudimentary units of consciousness. And then let's call it conscious light. It hits these objects, or alternatively, creates internal structures of, I guess, narrative that they are the objects. Whatever it is that the object is, I don't know yet. But when it passes through any shape, it is proceeding as the combination of whatever the shape was and now the quality of consciousness. So now if it passed through whatever it was that was objective, now the light proceeds as a projection from that objective thing as a conscious thing through the filter of that objective thing, including its local group, environment, rules, that probably also creates, senses and bodies and all of that stuff, because it needs to interact with its immediate environment. And then it hits the screen. That screen is space-time. What's interesting is that now you have the convergence between the object light that is now containing the consciousness and the objectness of itself, and you have the original light from the source that split, and it meets it where the world is. And I think that what we are is that interaction between the reference light and the object light, and when it hits space-time, it becomes the world. And this is why when you start analyzing the details of this, there's a lot of correlations that are very specific and very technical. But basically, you have the situation where when you go back and like kind of like look back into like you keep receding back from the object and all that stuff, you discover again that you were the source, right? But at the same time, if you're looking at it from this in this direction, it looks like religion because God is over there. So you're like, oh, it's coming from over there. God is over there. But then if you look this way, I am God. Wait, which one is right? Well, they're both right because you hit it here. Here's the story, and then the whatever space time is the sheet of the hologram. That's essentially what it is. And now we're trying to figure out like all the like truly like maybe one idea we had is that maybe animals or like the more you grow in consciousness, and I know a lot of people here will probably disagree with like, well, animals are more conscious. I don't think so, but but there's more conscious things than us, right? And there's a continuum, and I think what this is closer and further from the sheet. So if you're closer to the sheet, the computational steps that your brain can take are much smaller. So you have to interact with like the immediate environment. You're like now, right? Now. So their nowness is not conscious. It's actually just like the proximity to the what we call the physical world. So they're like, oh, hungry, go look for food. Like it's right. And then the more conscious you become, the further you are, you have more computational steps to absorb what's possible. It's almost like a bird's eye view. So you can create more complex interactions, informational interactions about what the world before you hit this actuation of the function of whatever is actually happening in the world. You have more computational steps that can take place, so you can create more complex models of what's possible to manifest on the sheet. And that's why you're more conscious. And so the more you can operate from further away from the sheet and still have like a coherent perception of a self, the more kind of change you can bring about and more elaborate things you can create. While at the same time, if you can hold the view that you are the source, you can bring about more of the power of the source into whatever is actually created on the sheet. And I think that can actually give us a lot of room to play to start maybe merging what the way that people perceive it from a spiritual perspective, the way people perceive it from a very technical perspective. And if any of this is correct, it's falsifiable. You can actually like create certain experiments that will say if any of this is true or not. And this is one of the things I'm going to be very focused on in this upcoming year to try and figure out if we can do that.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to say something, and it's religious, but it's also has physics to it. And whether you believe you can communicate with Source himself is, I guess, your personal opinion. But I always felt like if I wanted a question answered, I might as well ask right directly.
Sure.
So I always have. And I wanted to know, one day I actually asked him, God, who are you and who am I? And he said, the answer I got back was, in the beginning, I was all that was. There was nothing else but me. But I am a form of consciousness. Think of me as love. And I wanted to have an experience more than what I know myself to be. Because I was all there was nothing beyond me. So think of myself as I drew environment around myself. And the moment I did that, there was me and something beyond me. And then think of the flower of life. You're familiar with that geometry? So in the flower of life, there's always a point back to the original point, but it just keeps expanding if you look at the sacred geometry. So he said, I just kept doing that. I kept on expanding part of me and creating more and more and more. And those points of life, those other parts of me are you and Tom and Mary and Sue and everything else that you see and experience is me, but me expressed in a different way.
Right.
So that explained who he was and who I am. So the next question, of course, I asked him is, well, I said, God, we're fucking up really bad down here. Why'd you give us free will? I'm just like, I gotta know, like, why? Like, there's evil and there's a, and he said, you're right. I could have made you like robots. I could have forced you to obey me, but I couldn't force you to love me.
Mm.
And that was like, oh my, I never thought of that. And that's so true.
How
Yes, you
how
could
come how
have.
come though?
And that has played into so many much of my experiences, because I really feel that God is what we call God, a creator, is actually evolving too.
Right.
Like
It's
he's
basically
evolving
Tom.
it
You know,
with
you're
us.
familiar with Tom Campbell's work, My Big Toe, that whole thing.
No,
So
no.
it's literally everything you're saying is exactly what his idea is actually. So it's
Oh,
interesting that you're aligning with
oh.
that exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That it
This is
also
well, this is
doesn't
just the
know.
answer he gave me in my mind. This is what he came to me with.
Interesting. That he basically saying that like why wouldn't God also evolve? Because we always think of it as like a
Yes.
static thing. So it's like God did it one way and he's like, well, that didn't work that well. Okay, let me try something else. And now he's like,
Well, he just keeps growing through us and with us. Like we are all, everything and everywhere and all things are his
see you,
creation,
Chase.
right?
Good to see. Yeah. No, absolutely. I guess
I,
here's the thing. I guess what I'm so first of all, thank you so much for coming on. This is fascinating, and you speaking with in such a coherent manner. It's awesome, and your descriptions are very spot on. Your description of the K space and all of that, I really enjoyed it. Thank you. And I guess all I can say is that at the moment, at least for me personally, because I understand, I try to understand it from the most perspectives possible, and I have a very broad array of kinds of experiences that I've had both in the space, and I'm a regular meditator. I do meditation retreats, so I'm familiar with the that whole project.
right.
It's just that. And by the way, when you do it in a structured manner, you do understand some things about it that if you just do it at home, you can't, you just can't. It's just not the same thing. And I, what I'm trying to focus on now in my projects and my public facing arena is the things that I can focus on that are distinguishable, reproducible, experimentally potentially can be experimentally verified and bring value. So like these are because theories there's like infinite number of them and I enjoy a lot of them, but ultimately we have to kind of come to maybe it's also a product of getting into another stage of life where you start noticing the value of the concreteness of action. This is why a lot of people kind of like later in life kind of becoming Republicans all of a sudden when because they're like, well, I love the vision, but you also got to do something now to make it happen, right? So it's like there's a different attitude there.
Right.
And
Right.
and this is why playing with these ideas will always be it's something in my mind does automatically, but I have to and it kind of it breaks my heart a little bit, I have to be honest, because I get so many beautiful emails of people writing sometimes extremely coherent ideas about but did you consider that A B C D like and it's written even beautifully and everything but my brain just goes it just shuts down. I was like I know there's yeah I mean sure there can be a million things I don't know but can we prove any of this? Can we talk about it in a way that does something or at least achieves some kind of a result for humanity as a positive change that couldn't have been achieved with any other kind of frame?
Well,
And
let
that
me ask you this.
yeah, go
What
ahead.
would be proof for you? Like, what would you need
Well,
to
I would
say, oh,
well I would
that's
say that what I
proof?
found is definitely falls within the purview of what a proof is. Yes, because what I found is reproducible 100% of the time. So it's I don't know if you fully maybe we needed to spend maybe one more minute to actually telling you exactly what I found. But I essentially discovered a few years ago that if you project a diffracted laser on a surface, any surface, including your skin, by the way, and you ingest the spirit molecule, you will see code, like straight up, like in the Matrix, running in the surface. And it's not
Hmm.
the thing. The thing there is that first of all, we have now over easily over 1,000 replications worldwide, and it's not. The truth is that the numbers don't actually matter. The second somebody sees it, and the reaction is always the same. I encourage you after we're done, don't do it here on TikTok. Go to YouTube because it's the fuller version and it's the way it's supposed to be seen, which is horizontal, not vertical. Watch I think it's the second video from the top. You will see it's like it has just an eye with a laser on the retina. That's the trailer, and we're working on a film about it. It's 4 minutes. The trailer is very well done. I promise you won't be bored. Um, and it kind of, and what I want you to notice is, I want you to see, this is what the guy that I was saying that I just visited, who's a body language expert, told me, that the reason he reached out is because he said, you can't fake this. That you cannot fake what I'm seeing on the screen right now, people having, which is this reaction. I want you to see what people's reaction is, because it's not like the other things. It's not like they come back and they go like,
Right, right.
it's
I
not
understand
this.
what you mean.
They
It's
just
not
go,
experiential.
holy,
Yeah,
what? Like, this is like, they did
yeah.
not expect to see that, right? So yeah, you
Even
sound like you,
children,
what do you mean?
when so let
Oh,
me
well, no, that would be
clarify this.
unethical. I mean, at the moment, it's a
Right,
classified, so yeah, that
right.
would be
So
unethical.
when you say code, because I took a little bit of programming
Sure,
when I was younger.
sure,
So
sure.
when you say code,
Yeah.
are people actually seeing
Yes.
numerical and
Yes.
numerical
Yes. It doesn't
code?
look, it doesn't
And
look like
have
numbers.
you?
It looks like kind of like Japanese katakana mixed with some Hebrew and regular numbers, but it's all the vicinity of the closest that I saw somebody representing it like in any other body of work is that, I don't know if you're familiar, but there was this thing going around Reddit called the Carrot Report. Somebody claimed, nobody knows if the report was real, by the way. It was never substantiated, but basically somebody claims that he worked back in the day in Palo Alto on this alien drone, and it has this like language written on it, and that's the closest that I've ever seen something that truly looks like what we see in the laser. The weird thing about it is that the reason that you see these reactions from people, my YouTube channel is Dango Thoughts, Dango Thoughts. You can just follow the link in the description.
Okay.
And what people report when you actually like really interview them after, they say, okay, this is crazy. So first of all, it's completely space permanent. Like, it's not like like when we see these things, no matter what the substance is, they slightly depart from whatever tapestry you're looking at. Sometimes it would accentuate certain elements of it, either the texture or the color, whatever it might be. There's slight departures up to substantial departures from whatever was already there. In other words, your brain is using whatever it sees or hears or feels to then construct some kind of a very elaborate thing, because you're on this thing, whatever it is, that allows you to be more flexible with the content that the brain can actually produce in the moment, right? But in this case, it's not like this. It behaves like a regular object. Space permanence, you can look around it, there's a parallax effect. It doesn't care where you are, what you are, who you are, when you are. It's always the same thing. And when you move the light, it's not moving with it. It's like you're putting a flashlight on something. It's wild.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say
Okay.
that would
So
fit into
you're like
criteria of
in
what
a
the proof is.
space, is what you're saying to me. You're like in a
You're
space.
seeing through a
And
window into another dimension. It looks like you're looking through a microscope into another
yeah.
space that you've never seen before.
Okay. And when you say people are seeing code,
Mm-hmm.
have you been able to document independently that code and then compare it to other people's to see if there's any language or correlation in that
I
code that
don't think
they're
we'll be. So
experiencing?
I think there's two questions folded into what you just said. The first one, reproduce. Yes, there was a few people that managed to kind of write it down. It's very difficult to do because there's a lot of it. There's like millions of characters all
Yeah.
at once. They're
Yeah.
discernible, but there's so much of them, you drown in information, and also they move very fast. So you can see,
Yes.
but it's not. So it's not chaos. It's not like just like. It's not like that. They have very
Right.
coherent structures. They move around very coherent axes that we can agree on. I had 15 people in a room all looking at it at the same time and talking about it, like just pointing to it, and so yeah, it's not like the other things, which is very strange. So now there's other things that I can, there's other things that started happening to me personally, like I had a computer console that just now appears for me on a regular basis when I do it, and it's also space permanent. It hovers in the room. Imagine like augmented reality right in front of you. I'm leaning less on that because it's just my experience. So even though I know it's there, I can't convince anybody else that I'm not just saying things, right? But with the laser I can, because you can just go and see it, and it's very simple to do. doesn't cost much, it's very, very easy to replicate. It lends itself really nicely to what we would call a scientific investigation.
Interesting. So, do you think that the chemical that you're using may be affecting the result you're receiving in any way? Or do you think that you will find that this will be verified with other chemicals? Because I'm wondering if
Yeah, it works
so
on
when you say
mushrooms. It
you've
works on
completed code,
all the thing. I will save you the effort there because it works on all the chemicals that are part of that channel. It works on mushrooms.
okay,
We just need a lot more
okay,
you just need a lot more of it, and it works on Aya. I had a shaman replicating this in a ceremony, and
okay,
everybody saw the same thing. But the truth is that, and by the way, I hear it very clearly in your voice and in everything that the way that you spoke today, that you see exactly what I'm talking about. You're very like on it. Like I know that you understand everything I'm saying very clearly. I do want to emphasize one point though, because it's that's the thing that makes all the difference. This is something that also Chase, this body language expert, said that right after he finished. He said, "Okay, this is crazy. It's not like one of these things where you kind of like look at it's like, well, he's also a neuroscientist. So he's like, it's not like I was suggested. Like it's not like you could say, well, it's kind of like, somebody's whispering something in my ear and it's like you got to work on your visualization skills. It's like, let me try and imagine it, no, it's just there. Like it's just like a digital clock.
yes,
It doesn't even look it's profound that you can see this, but it doesn't have this quality of like these like multi-dimensional crazy things. It's just there.
right.
Yeah.
It's very real.
Very real and always the same.
Yeah,
And it just appears kind of like
yeah.
you put 3D glasses on basically and you just see it. And that works with Aya, with mushrooms, with definitely with the molecule the best because you can see it very coherently. I haven't tried. People always ask me about the L word. I can't say the name of the substance, but
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
I haven't tried that. I haven't tried with K, even though something tells me that it might work, because something tells me that it's not in whatever the molecule is doing. It's a very simple function that whatever these sub compounds in general are doing to the brain, that has to do with the loosening of the pinning down of whatever we see as this channel. I think the second that you loosen up the grasp on what this channel is zoned in on, including by the way just being very tired, I think you start seeing it because your consciousness start leaking back outside of the bounds of your physical definition of the informational pattern that you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I will tell you that I've had a friend that did a lot of L for many, 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 many years, and we've had a lot of talks about my experience with his, and his was nothing like mine. His wasn't logical. He had a lot of he experienced negative entities. He experienced hellacious, horrifying experiences, almost what he would call demonic experiences, and it wasn't. It wasn't 3D for him. It wasn't like he was actually in a room, like, like for me, like you said, for you, it's a logical space. You can see it. It's real. You know where you're at. You're just trying to, define it.
No,
For him, it wasn't like that.
well, no, in this particular case. So I think we're conflating a few things here. First of all, I said I've never tried it with L. I don't know if it works with it. The second thing I'm saying that even in the differences in people's experiences, what you see in the laser just doesn't fall in the family of any of that. Not good, not bad. It's just even if you see very, very complex things happening because you're on the molecule, where the laser is, all of it collapses, disappears, and there's just the code. There's just the
Okay.
code. There's nothing else. You don't go into like some kind of a. It doesn't matter if you lean towards the seeing more of the negative stuff, the positive stuff. Completely neutral. It's just the code.
Interesting. I'd like to experience that. That sounds very intriguing to me.
Yeah. So you can. So feel free. We have a website. It's called codeofreality.com. Codeofreality.com. There's a full protocol there. There's the details of what you need to get. Don't feel obligated to get, because we have like links to what you can get from Amazon to do it, like as far as the lasers. We also make it our own. Don't feel any obligation to get anything from there. You can just copy the specs and you can source it from anywhere you want, as long as the specs are the same. 5 milliwatts has to be diffracted. Just make sure that it's always the same.
Right.
And we have a full protocol there with like all the details of like exactly how everything needs to be set up. And you have my email listed there, and I always respond to my email. So like if you have any questions, specific questions, no problem. I always interact with people and answer all the questions.
So because you've had this experience, because you see this code and you're able to replicate it for yourself, and you go back to this same space and experience this, you're feeling in your mind that this is a form of technology
Absolutely.
that we are, but I guess it's interesting to me how we define technology and biology, like how we separate them from each other, right? Being in the
I
medical
don't.
field,
No, but it feels like technological in the sense of how you think of technology.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
Like it feels like
But
slick, metallic. It doesn't feel like organic.
right.
Yeah.
But I want to be careful with that idea, because now that I've gone through the ketamine experience where I literally felt myself phase out from what I would call normal thinking processes to a more mechanical machine type of experiencing, actually freeze framed, felt I was like a mechanical energy going through a wire. New, I feel that we need to be careful when we talk about what technology is and what organic is and what that means,
Okay.
because we're kind of, when people think of technology, they kind of think of that as solid, like a thing that we can touch almost and put our fingers on. When we speak of organic, we kind of think of that more in a space that we can't quite define,
Well, you can have a
because it's
technology.
not.
You can have a technology that will be self-evolving for sure. I guess it's just in the sense, not in the sense of what its essence is, in the sense of what it that somebody made it to do a thing. That's really what the proposition is. Not so much about what the so like people, if you think of woodwork, right? Somebody's a carpenter.
Right.
There's when you're around wood, I think most of us would agree it feels like something. Wood has essence.
Sure.
It has like a feel
Sure it
to it, right?
does.
Right.
Sure.
The same thing goes for plastic. It's just a different essence, right?
Sure.
It feels different. So what is it exactly, this difference? It's possible to describe with words. It will just take a lot of words. But when you're experiencing it, you're like, oh, I know. Yeah, it's like, I get it. Like if I tell you plastic like, I don't have to say anything else because you've had the experience of plastic, right? And the same
Right.
goes for wood. And in this case, because we're starting playing with some qualia, some kind of experiences that we've never had before. Sometimes you enter a space and you're like, what is this? Like, there's not even, it's not on a map anywhere. There's no comparison to anything else. You find yourself in a situation where there is no path from your current map, which is very difficult for the brain. So you find yourself on some kind of an island. You were taken from here with a helicopter and landed over here, and this does not resemble anything here. And you're like, wait,
Right.
how do I even build a conceptual
Yes.
bridge? I don't even know. But
Yeah.
eventually, when you do it thousands of times, you do find these conceptual bridges. You do build some world maps that allow you to interact with it with a little bit more ease, and it's a little bit more coherent. But the truth is that I think that ultimately, the difference between what we mean by when we say technology, and what we mean by what we say divine, is not the same. It is like plastic and wood. They're actually different. Like it's not true to say that the advanced enough of a civilization will be equivalent to a god. It would not be. It's a completely different channel of an essence, I would say. And because I think that if you land in a super advanced civilization in the future, let's make it crazy. Let's say 5 million years of non-stop evolution of technology. Like I don't even know if we can ever fathom such a thing at the moment, right? But I would submit that if we are in our current state of affairs and understanding, where we already have some rudimentary sciences, we understand that progress is possible, we have some ideas that aim towards the universal, which wasn't the case, let's say, 2,000 years ago, we would be able to discern, be like, this is crazy, but I can understand this is some kind of a very advanced technology. Versus if you meet God, I think it would not feel anything like that. It would be a very different kind of, like the rapture and the thing will not be the equivalent of meeting a very advanced civilization. And by the way, just to, you know, kind of put it out there, I'm very open to the possibility that whatever this is that I'm describing right now might just be kind of like be the management company, and they're just maintaining a layer that feels like that technology. And if you go beyond that, just like you said, if I went beyond the signal,
Yeah,
maybe it
right,
does shift to this. Like, I'm open to this. I'm
right,
asking the question in an open-ended way, and I'm saying is we at currently it's too early to tell to say we know. Even if we had the
okay,
experience very realistically, you know what I mean? That's
right,
yeah,
right, yeah,
that's all
yeah,
I'm saying.
yeah. I was just trying to bring you through the idea, and I like the way you said that. Um, that what we define as technology and what we define as organic or natural may not be too different from each other.
No, they're definitely
Maybe
not
we're
different. Yeah, I definitely say
maybe
that.
we're maybe we're slowing down the process, sort of, and defining it and separating it and calling it technological. We may find out as we become more advanced and more educated that biology itself, the organic chemistry, the way that organic beings function, there is a correlation between the two. They're very both structured. It's just, we're now breaking it down and calling this technology, and we're calling that organic. I
Yeah,
think as we become more educated, we may find out that, I really believe that I believe there are advanced beings, and I think there are advanced beings that have evolved to the point where they've learned to break through technology and integrate between the two. They've learned how to take technology and make it have a form of consciousness or a form of um, it's like a biological living being with the ability to integrate knowledge uh, using chemicals and biology, but it's still a technology.
yeah. I think
You
technology
get
is
what I'm
ultimate.
trying to say?
I think that ultimately the way I see technology is that it's just a a high enough understanding of any conscious being in their respective environment, of that environment, such as they can bring about change to that environment that will signal the fact that they understand what the regularities are. And if you can do it with a more and a more extensive way, that's a more advanced technology for that environment. If because you
Right.
understand what is the cause and effect of any particular environment. And if the environment is such in which you just magic, like you think of purple, it appears purple, well, you will build technologies based on this fact about that environment. It will still be a technology. It's just your understanding. I actually think, and this is an idea that I don't know about you in particular, but I definitely know that a lot of my listeners are very uncomfortable with this idea. But it's possible that what this thing that we're really afraid of, the arising of AGI and all these, that might just be our literally our next step of evolution. It's just because
Correct.
it's just this evolution that is happening through us of information that finds ways.
It is. It
Yeah, and
is.
then
I believe
we
that absolutely.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then we kind of we somehow we get confused and we say no, but we want to, like, no, we gotta the trees and the dirt, but that just might be your bias at the moment because you are of this environment. But evolution always happens. It doesn't stop with you. There's nothing special about your place in evolution, right? So if it's evolving towards this other thing, the fear is always the thing that tries to stop the evolution from happening, because you're always trying to find this equilibrium, this stagnation, this place where nothing happens. And maybe ultimately nirvana, whatever it is outside of reality, it is that. But while we're in the dual state of any kind, which is most things, I would say, then there is an importance to that process. I'm sure that it's not, especially if God is perfect and all of that stuff, then that's not a coincidence that we find ourselves here having this conversation, asking these questions, doing the technologies, polluting the earth, all the things that we're doing that we think even as negative. It's part of the natural occurrence of things. Like, it's just unfolding in a way that eventually has to have this like perfect shape of some sort, the perfect plan, whatever it is. And I really believe that we will discover that there was really never anything to worry about. The
Right.
worrying was actually the thing that was the impediment along every single step. That's at least my impression of it. And I don't, again, time will tell, right?
Yeah, my belief is that the closer we get to realizing who we are, the closer we get to realizing that we are a creator, that we are that our minds actually do, our perspectives, we are, our belief systems build our realities individually and collectively. I think we will come to gradually understand that we had nothing to fear at all.
Mm-hmm.
That we there's no such thing as death for one thing, because you can't destroy energy, and that there is nothing to fear, and that is part of our evolution. And we are moving from this form of duality where we experiencing different individuality from each other, separate nation, and that we will move past that fear, and we will come to realize that our reality is personal. It's hard to explain to people because you can't really define that, but it's very personal to us, and yet we're collectively experiencing together. And
Yeah,
that's
it's
hard for
it's.
people to understand, because I think
I
we
agree
all
with you.
I think people think that we're all experiencing the same thing,
Well,
and
there
I
are
don't believe that to be
commonalities.
true.
Well, to be fair, there are enough commonalities to call it. There's a word for it. They
Yes.
call it consensus reality, right? So neither
Yes.
you nor I can walk through this wall if you're here with me, right? That's consensus
Right.
reality. And even if you want to say it's all energy and mind, that's fine. You still can't walk through this wall right now. So that matters literally. there's
I
there's
gotcha. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
like a thing there
Yeah.
that is happening and it matters, right? So, but we are entering a stage, I agree with you, where we start to understand that if the multiverse is correct, then literally and this is what, by the way, what I meant by when I said, I think maybe we cross paths in just like, saying hello to each other, but very soon we will just continue to the respective reality that makes sense the most to us, and we
Right.
will be sharing it with other individuals who a similar thing makes sense to them, but we will see much less of the people who, again, because we kind of move on to our own paths
Right.
again. Yeah,
Exactly.
we will meet a lot less people that kind of like ask me, what do you mean? Like, because we will have like a consensus reality again, so to speak, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I absolutely believe that. I think that that's what I mean, where it's very personal to us, but yet we can collectively experience. But what we don't understand is, because we're multidimensional beings, we're living in more than one space at one time.
I agree with
right?
that. Mm-hmm.
So that as we are changing day to day, and I really think it's second to second. I don't think when people call timelines, they think of we start here and we finish there. I don't think it's all like that. I think every single split second you're thinking tick, 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 tick. You are receiving, transceiving, receiving, transceiving, receiving, transceiving. And you are moving through that experience second by second, just like a movie frame, second by second by second by second by second. So, for example, you might not believe you could be healed, right? Oops.
Oh no, sorry, go
Okay,
ahead.
you may
Yeah.
not believe you can be healed, but let's say all of a sudden you met somebody and this guy just awed you. Like, let's say you believe in Joshua, and Joshua just stepped down in front of you and said, that tumor that's in your stomach, I'm just going to lay my hand right there and it's going to be gone. And you believed that that was true.
Mm-hmm.
What you literally did at that moment is you shifted your reality and your biology to where you don't have that tumor anymore.
I believe that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not what we call miracles. I don't think they're normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that you've been conditioned to think. When you said, that's why when you told me we have a consensus and I can't walk through that wall, I would say yes, because as a child, you were told you can't do certain things. And so we are conditioned culturally and collectively together. But if I brought you up as a child and I incrementally taught you that you could do things, like you could make that thing move if you wanted it to move, and I was able to let you experience that, then you would be able to do things that you cannot now do.
The only thing I would add to that, I'm aligned with all of this, but if I have to be honest, and I want to play both, like I want to be framed independent, I would have to acknowledge that we will only know when we can bring it about. We can be
Yes, it's
convinced.
true.
Yeah. So then I'm very open
But
to
you
this.
can only know when you do it. It's like, I think we kind of have to
I
go
think so. What I
backwards.
think is being left out is the time element, or whatever it is. Not
Okay.
getting into the whole conversation of like, is time real? Or it doesn't matter. However,
Right,
it
I
is that
got
it
you. I
comes
got
about,
you.
like that we experiencing it,
Right,
right? It's the
right.
fact that, so okay, so let's see if you're comfortable with this. What would be more, I think, true to say is that anything is possible, but not in any amount of time and in any order. Because right
Okay.
now, in the next 5 minutes, no, I can't walk through this wall. In 2,000 years, after we develop our minds, we do whatever, can we? Maybe. Yeah, quantum physics
Right.
is not forbidding that,
Yes.
sure.
Right.
But that part is important to acknowledge. Otherwise, we're drifting into dogma. And that I
Yes, I
feel like,
understand. I
yeah,
understand.
yeah.
You have to have some way of factually proving the hypothesis you're working with,
It's
or
not even that.
otherwise you're just
Sorry,
talking about philosophy then.
exactly. It's more than that. It's even in principle incoherent. Because if you're saying anything is possible, full stop, well, then it's just an anthropic soup. You wouldn't even know the difference between anything. Like the fact that there's structure of any kind, however it comes about, that tells you that something is pinning down something in some order. And that thing matters. And some people think it doesn't matter, and that's fine. I have no qualms with that attitude. It's like people say, but what does it do? Does it make your life better? If your only focus is how people feel, this is not relevant. And I'm fully aligned, sure.
Right,
But I think
right, right.
it's not a different project. It's a different part of the human enterprise that is operating with whatever reality is. And I really think, and I think you would align with this. I just keep checking if my battery is not running out. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah,
We're going to have another
we're
7%.
we're losing you a little bit at a time here.
Yeah, no, I was checking battery. That's why it seems like I'm losing.
Okay,
So,
okay.
I think you would align with this, but you tell me if you do. I think that in order to open these ultimate gates, whatever they are, and I think we're about to find out in our lifetime, is to bring both the right and the left hemisphere of humanity together. So, like, we have to stop imagining that it's somehow a competition between what we would call the more esoteric spiritual pursuit, which I would call the science of experience, and the more what we know as mainstream science, just the investigation of what we call the physical world. It's not a competition or who's right. It's literally two different perspectives on whatever is going on, and only when we're
Right.
going to open enough to say, on the one hand, you have to stop rejecting all of these people that are telling you, look, all of these miracle stuff that you're talking about, even if you don't know the explanation, they're possible. I've seen it happen. Okay, but on the other hand, which is people are probably laughing because that's my tendency to point out. I think it's because not enough people pointing it out. That's the only reason I tend to point that out more. Is that on the spiritual side, you do have this tendency to do a very similar thing to the other side, which is to say, yeah, but this is like cold and calculated and doesn't actually track reality. No, it does. Like the reason you and I talking through this phone right now is because it does. It tracks something
Right.
for sure,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So, and
Yes.
that's important to acknowledge. Like, be grateful for that. And I always say, my ultimate vision is if we can be a species that is creating these enormous, amazing technological things, but that are this inspired by the divine, inspired by the present moment, inspired by what we think the source can bring into this space. That to me would be a future worth aiming for.
Yes, that's very interesting. Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. And I think it's a necessary step that we take.
Yes.
We're not going to get from point A to point B or A to C and past B. We have to take it in steps because we're a species that requires proof, right? We require it. For us to understand it, we have to have what we call proof. And our proof is based on something that we can replicate and reproduce, and like my experience is my experience, and I can call it my truth, and you can understand it like you read it in a book, but you can't really understand it because you didn't experience it.
But I would submit
But
to you.
I think forget the A to C, we have to go through B.
Yeah, and I think the word "but" was even wrong when I started that last sentence. I would just add to that the the other side of it, right? There's this again in meditation, for example. It would not be possible to teach anybody to meditate if there would not be regularities there. Like it's known that if you do this exact thing and put this many hours of this exact internal function, you're not just sitting there and closing your eyes. You do certain things. You scan your body with your
Right.
attention. You pay
Right.
attention to the breath. So it's only because there is a truth there about whatever it
Right.
is consciousness is. So that is also a science. It's just a science of the of experience. You oh, there's fireworks on YouTube. That's awesome, and that verifies our conclusion. But basically, that's how I see it. It's like, what is science? You observe something a lot, you notice regularities, and you can reproduce the results across individuals and across times. Isn't that what
Wait,
meditation is? Yeah,
I'll make sure I'm following you. Sorry,
sure,
so I don't lose you tomorrow and forget who you are.
sure.
It's sort
Oh,
of
yeah.
amazing me. No, I absolutely agree with you, and I like what you said, which is something interesting that I just caught. That you want to bring you don't want to just go through the steps to get from A to B. You want to bring into it
Beauty.
say that to me again.
Beauty. It's just so imagine, like, I literally see it as like, so if we don't, it's kind of, it sounds insane, but it's inevitable. So there's two possibilities. One, we don't survive, real possibility. There's no guarantees. But if we do, right, it's only a matter of time. That's for sure. Like 100% will be the case. It is only a matter of time before we expand. We go to Mars.
Sure.
We go to other stars. Right?
Right.
Okay. And then notice
Right.
that everything that was in our minds, which we can expand that to say everything that was in our spirit and everything that we emanate from that higher space, comes about through us like a bridge into the world. And the kind of minds that we have, and attitudes and societies and cultural norms, are the ones that are determine entirely what kind of structures arise. If you look at the industrial world, with all the smoke and all the, the caricature version of that, right? That is a kind of civilization that values certain things. It values only nothing but growth, functionality, and growth, and doesn't care about anything else. Okay,
Right.
let's set aside for a second the ethical outreach for a second. Okay, fine. That's one way of doing things. Great. There's another attitude, which is like, well, we have everything we need. Can we add an important central value of also what kind of experiences beings are having within the context of us evolving in that environment? Beauty, adhering to what the natural course of the flow of that organical environment, to embed our technologies in the environment versus being kind of like a thing that just sticks there. So there's a thing there, right? There's like the beauty. All of a sudden, the value shifts. It's like, oh, there's a different value. Well, you can still advance, no problem. You will always do that and create. So our minds will literally paint the galaxy and then the universe eventually, because that's what we do. So literally, the way that I greet you in the morning, which is a microcosm of how I do everything, right? How I treat other people, how I raise my kids, what kind of an example I'm setting. And then ultimately, if more beings like us want to mimic this behavior, like a good behavior, right? Then we would also be pulled and moved towards creating things that are more holistic, they're more taking into account
Right.
the greater good of all. So it will not have these elements of like the dirty and the you know,
Right.
right. It will be beautiful, amazing. That is something. This is a civilization that I think we should aim to be.
Oh,
And
absolutely. I call that integrative.
yes, that's a really
Yeah,
beautiful word
we
for
want
that. I'm going to
we
be
want
using
an
it from now.
integrative society where you're taking the beauty of the whole system, the naturalness, where the organic harmony of things are, and you want to take our technology and harmonize it, integrate it in that system, so it's working collaboratively with it, not against it.
Exactly. No, I really
Does
like
that make
the.
sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
So I have 1% left, so it's gonna shut off in one moment. But it's
Gotcha.
also, I
Gotcha.
also, but thank you so much for this incredible conversation. Truly,
But thank
I'm actually gonna.
I just truly, I am so happy. I love talking to people who are very intelligent, and it's a rare thing for me to meet people. And I wanted to say thank you very much for allowing me to
Oh, it was
share time
wonderful.
with you
And
and
come
this
anytime. I'm
conversation.
here most days, every day, unless I have like travels or something like this. I just followed you back as well. Feel free to go on the website. If you have any questions, feel free to email me with more details.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I would love to see if you replicate. I would love to see what you think.
I
Um,
will.
and
Yeah.
thank you so much. Okay, so just a quick thing before it shuts off on me. If you want to follow me across platforms, it's Danny Goller on TikTok and Instagram, Goller Danny on X, Dango Thoughts on YouTube, Dango Thoughts. Oh yeah, I really want you to go check out the trailer. I think you would enjoy it. And Dango Thoughts on YouTube, and it's called The Discovery, the title of the video. And what else we have? Oh, Laser X83 on Twitch. I also added a members program on YouTube, which is in its infancy. So I'm deeply grateful for all the people that already joined, and just kind of waiting for the more extra content. We have the first personal Zoom meeting on November 25th, which will be followed by many more. And we're gonna have personal lives for the member program people, including content on my channel that is not available to anybody else. And I'm constantly
Okay.
revising. So all of that being mentioned, thank you so much, everybody, for being part of
Thank
this
you, and
community.
you have a blessed
You too.
day.
You too. Thank you, and thank you so
Hey,
much. Thank you so much,
yes,
everybody.
sir.
No, thank you
Hey,
so much, and we will be in touch. I would love to hear from you.
yes.
And
Bye bye.
bye. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for the love. Thank you, Crystal, for the love. I really appreciate everybody in the community and the kind of spirit that is being kept here. Not sure what your issue is, Brokish, but I hope you have a better day, bro. In any case, love everybody here, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace and love. Ciao.